All Elite Wrestling has had a successful 2025 so far, featuring their first ever stadium show in the United States, and this past week's episode of AEW Dynamite was the second most viewed Dynamite all year, behind their debut episode in Arena Mexico for Grand Slam Mexico. With that in mind, could Tony Khan look to expand on the success and have several more new signings becoming All Elite in the near future? In this countdown video, we'll show you 5 people who could become All Elite very soon. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of stories to get into in the world of professional wrestling. Before we begin today's countdown video, you can see right there, we are just 7 subscribers away from 23,600 on that road to 25k. Of course, that's our goal, 25k in 2025. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe, join the ever-expanding WNU. You can also become a member of the WN365 roster. All you have to do is scan that QR code when it appears on the sidebar, click the join button, or click the link in the video description below. You get your badges, your emojis, and your exclusive members only content. Now let's get into today's countdown video, and like I said, 2025 has been relatively successful for AEW. They've had their first ever stadium show in the United States for All In Texas in Arlington at Globe Life Field. They've also, this past week on AEW Dynamite, had their second most viewed episode of the year, behind their debut episode of Dynamite in Arena Mexico. Now, what about new signings? Well, we have seen some stars become All Elite this year, but could Tony Khan have some other names up his sleeve to become All Elite very soon? Let's get into 5 possible new AEW signings, beginning with Shayna Baszler. Now, this one, of course, is very interesting. There is a link for Shayna Baszler to become All Elite. First of all, let's talk about her tenure in WWE. She's a former NXT champion, and really had her best success in WWE in their developmental brand, not so much on the main roster, but still did have success on the main roster. She was a 2-time NXT Women's Champion. At the time, she held the record for the longest reigning NXT Women's Champion of all time, over 2 consecutive reigns. Now, on the main roster, she did hold the Women's Tag Team Championship on 3 occasions, twice with Nia Jax, once with Ronda Rousey. She also, when she just came up to the main roster, was the runner-up in the 2020 Women's Royal Rumble match, being last eliminated by Charlotte Flair. In addition to that, just a month later, she won the Women's Elimination Chamber match, and actually did a bit of history at the time. She was the first ever person to eliminate every single other competitor in the match. A truly dominant display, but she didn't win that year at WrestleMania. She was defeated by Becky Lynch in the pandemic WrestleMania 36 inside the WWE Performance Center. Now, she was recently released by WWE. On May 2nd, WWE informed Shayna Baszler that her contract would expire on July 31st, and they wouldn't offer her a new deal, ending her 8-year tenure with the company and effectively disbanding the faction that she was in, the Pure Fusion Collective. Now, despite having been released under a 90-day non-compete clause, Baszler was reportedly listed as a producer on the July 9th episode of WWE NXT, where she produced a match alongside Christopher Gerard. Now, this led to a lot of people saying, oh, she's sticking around with WWE. Shayna Baszler actually mentioned this on a Twitch stream, saying that she basically just was at the Performance Center anyway, and in addition, she's still technically under contract to WWE, so because of that, they just had her basically do something since she was there. She hasn't decided if she wants to retire, because if she just become a producer full-time for WWE, it would likely mean the end of her in-ring career. Of course, at this stage in time, she's 45 years old, so she is considering her pro wrestling future, but there are several male pro wrestlers that are wrestling way into their 50s. Several top stars in WWE and AEW, for that matter, are in their 50s or late 40s, so Baszler still could have several good years left in the ring. With that in mind, if she decides to stick around and actually wrestle as opposed to become a producer, maybe AEW is a direction for her. She's got people that she knows that has competed and currently compete in the promotion, one, of course, being Marina Shafir, one of the 4 horsewomen alongside her, Jessamine Duke and Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey has also made appearances for Ring of Honor as well. So could Baszler go into the AEW Women's Division and become a member of it? Certainly, Tony Khan is looking to expand the Women's Division later on this year. He's spoke about plans to introduce a Women's Tag Team Championship. The bouts have already been made for it. We've got the TBS Championship and the AEW Women's World Championship, with timeless Toni Storm always needing new opponents. Maybe the Queen of Spades could be one of them in the future. What about Dakota Kai? Now, we're speaking about Dakota Kai, speaking about, obviously, the women's division. As I mentioned, the women's division is expanding in AEW with new championships expected to be introduced, as well as Ring of Honor, with a Ring of Honor Women's Pure Championship set to be introduced as well. And Kai is expected to land in AEW because she's already had talks in the past. Now, this was after she was released from her WWE contract back in April of 2022. She was released from her WWE deal. It ended her near 7-year tenure with the company. And actually, at the time, she reportedly expressed to the company she was not planning on renewing her contract prior to her being released. This was at a time of flux in WWE. It was at a time of a lot of unhappiness in WWE. Vince McMahon was still in charge of creative. There was pretty much a big mass talent exodus at the time, with NXT 2.0 being launched, and really a feeling that people that had success in the black and gold era of NXT weren't going to get a proper shot on the main roster, and if they were, it was with bad creative, unsatisfying creative, people like Bearcat Lee and Karrion Kross having to dress like a gladiator, Adam Cole potentially becoming a manager for Keith Lee. Several stars opted to leave instead of even going to the main roster, and Kai was one of those people. However, during her absence, this is when Vince McMahon's scandal broke out from the Wall Street Journal. He retired, Triple H got in charge of WWE Creative, and one of his first decisions was to bring Dakota Kai back to WWE. She returned at SummerSlam alongside Io Sky and Bayley, and formed Damage Control. Now, of course, she had success with Damage Control on the main roster, but earlier this year, Dakota Kai was once again released again. She had suffered a concussion in January. She did return in March. She competed against Ivy Nile on an episode of Main Event, but that was her final match in WWE on the 2nd of May. Kai was once again released from her WWE contract, ending her second tenure of 3 years with the company. Now, ever since her release, it has been widely reported that she is expected to land in AEW. As I mentioned, they had talks before, so the expectation would be that they would have talks again. Like I said with Shayna Baszler, AEW is looking to expand the AEW Women's Division this year with a renewed focus, with the likes of Mercedes Moné being the TBS champion, obviously Timeless Toni Storm having great success as the AEW Women's World Champion, and more Women's Championships being introduced, not only All Elite Wrestling but Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor, of course, has the Ring of Honor Women's World Championship held by Athena. You've got the Ring of Honor World Television Championship, which is in a bit of flux right now. Of course, you've got Red Velvet as the champion, but also you then have a situation where Mina Shirakawa won an interim championship at All in Texas, but she got injured. There was a plan to introduce a Ring of Honor Women's Pure Championship, and as I mentioned, the aforementioned AEW Women's Tag Team titles as well. So Dakota Kai could come into the company and certainly be a major player when it pertains to those championships, or possibly the TBS or AEW Women's World Championship to boot. Ace Austin. Ace Austin is one of the most sought-after free agents, one would think, on the market right now. Ace Austin, really a pillar of TNA wrestling for several years. He was with TNA for about 6 years. On May, Ace Austin confirmed that he was a free agent, ending his 6-year tenure with the promotion. It was reported that he was in negotiations with TNA Wrestling for a new contract, but both sides couldn't come to an agreement. Now, since leaving TNA Wrestling, he's done largely indie shows. He's also done appearances for Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling based out of Canada, of course having ties with Scott D'Amore, the former president of TNA Wrestling, now the president of Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling. He actually appeared on July 6th, 2025 at MLP Resurrection. He made his debut for Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling. He unsuccessfully challenged now AEW star Josh Alexander for the MLP Canadian Championship. In his time in TNA Wrestling / Impact Wrestling, he was very successful. A 3-time TNA World Tag Team Champion with ABC Tag Team partner Chris Bay as part of Bullet Club. Of course, unfortunately, last year Chris Bay suffered that possibly career-ending injury in which he was paralyzed after breaking his neck. Thankfully, Chris Bay is now able to walk again and maybe one day could return to the ring. After that, he was largely a singles talent again, teamed with the Hardy Boys on occasion. He was also a 3-time TNA X Division champion too, and had great success in TNA Wrestling. Many feel he's ready for a step up, and you feel like with his style that maybe would be more in keeping with AEW than possibly WWE at this stage of his career. There have been comparisons made with him and Speedball Mike Bailey. Of course, Speedball's had great success since he came into AEW earlier this year, was a name that signed with AEW after leaving TNA Wrestling, and he could go down that same route. Now, we don't know if Ace Austin has had talks with AEW. You feel like if he would sign with WWE, he would possibly go to NXT first prior to going to the main roster, whereas with AEW, maybe he fits that style more. He's still an incredibly young wrestler, despite being with TNA Wrestling for 6 years. He's not even 30 years old yet. He's actually 28 years old. He turned 28 in February of 2025, so he's not arguably even in his prime when it comes to being a professional wrestler and still has several more years left in him. With that being said, AEW could look to invest in someone like Ace Austin for the future, but also have someone that's incredibly experienced already, and maybe that might be the perfect move for him, is to become All Elite in the near future. Now, Beia Priestley, this is someone who possibly could re-sign here with AEW because she does have a lot of history here with All Elite Wrestling. She was one of actually the first names to be signed by AEW. On January 22nd, 2019, it was reported that Priestley was close to signing a contract with All Elite Wrestling after actually turning down a WWE contract. Now, it was announced on the edition of 27th of February 2019 of Road to Double or Nothing that she would be joining the company. She made her debut at Fight for the Fallen in July of 2019. She entered an on-screen feud with Britt Baker after legitimately concussing Baker with a kick to the back of the head. It ending their feud where Baker openly referred to Priestley as unprofessional. Priestley eventually got defeated in a conclusive singles match of this feud to Baker Full Gear. On the Thanksgiving Eve special of Dynamite, Priestley and Emi Sakura defeated Hikaru Shida and Chris Statlander. She did appear on a December edition in 2019 of Dark, where she was defeated by Chris Statlander. On the 11th of March 2020 episode of Dynamite, she returned and teamed with AEW Women's World Champion Nyla Rose to defeat the team of Hikaru Shida and Chris Statlander. After the match, she attacked Rose and called her shot at the AEW Women's World Championship, but she didn't make any more appearances for AEW. She was a casualty of the COVID-19 pandemic. She was released from her contract in August of 2020 because she was unable to travel from her home in Japan due to restrictions from COVID-19. Now, eventually, she ended up signing with WWE. She was in NXT UK. Later went to the main NXT brand in the United States. She was called up to the main roster on night 2 of the 2024 WWE Draft. She was promoted to the SmackDown brand, but really didn't do all that much. Now, it looked like at one point she was going to align with the unholy union of Alba Fire and Isla Dawn, of course having history from NXT UK, but it was a short-lived alliance. She was released from her WWE contract on the 7th of February in 2025. Her last televised match was on the 22nd of November 2024 episode of SmackDown, where she lost in the first round of the tournament to crown the inaugural Women's United States Champion. Since then, she has made appearances for New Japan Pro Wrestling at the New Japan Pro Wrestling Resurgence event back in May. She also has returned to World Wonder Ring Stardom, of course, owned by New Japan parent company Bushiroad. That was back in July. So there could be a situation where she does return to the United States and she does return to AEW. Perhaps there's a situation where they can tell a storyline about her departure, how she was unfairly let go by AEW due to the pandemic, and now she's coming back for her redemption tour of All Elite Wrestling. You feel like there is a story there, and with the expansion of the AEW Women's Division this year, it could be a perfect fit for someone that does have a lot of experience, not only in Japan and in America, but also in All Elite Wrestling. Finally, Karrion Kross and Scarlet. Now, this is a very interesting one, of course, because possibly Karrion Kross might not even be available right now. There is so much confusion over Karrion Kross's WWE future. Now, according to reports, Karrion Kross's WWE contract is almost at its expiry date, and there's a lot of speculation about what Kross's future looks like. The former NXT champion has received a groundswell of fan support in recent months, but is potentially set to depart WWE when his contract expires unless things change. Potentially. Now, recent reports stated that Kross had been offered a new deal by WWE, with WWE wanting to manufacture an R-Truth situation. However, Kross has shot down such reports, saying the following to Joey Carney of the Angle podcast while promoting his new book. He said, quote, "I hope so," when asked if Scarlet and he would be back on WWE Raw. "I see things being written online right now, specifically today. A lot of what I read is not true. I hate to disappoint people, but I don't want to bullshit, but I hope so. I hope we do come back, Cross said. Now, a further report from Fightful Select suggested that as of August 4th, there was no contract offer for Cross and Scarlet, with the two not present at that night's Raw tapings, with reports on August 7th stating the pair had been offered new deals. Now, it's been stated that those within WWE and in Cross's camp who were previously talking about the situation have gone quiet, usually an indicator that something is happening. Now, whilst it is believed the duo were not offered new deals until late this week, with their current deals believed to be expiring around August 10th, that's this weekend, WWE will usually tout talents ahead of time if they're being let go at the expiration of their deals, rather than just keeping them in the dark. So it feels like this is up in the air. Now, there is this groundswell of support, and maybe WWE is trying to capitalize on that popularity by giving the indication that Karrion Kross and Scarlett are being screwed over and are being overlooked by the big machine. Or maybe it is legitimate. You can never tell in pro wrestling, right? That's part of the beauty. And if Karrion Kross and Scarlett legitimately do depart WWE, then maybe it's an opportunity for AEW to sweep in, offer them a deal, and get some popular stars onto their roster. Now, they did have talks with Karrion Kross before. When Karrion Kross was released by WWE initially, again, part of the Vince McMahon casualties of it all, in November of 2021, Kross and Scarlett were released from their contracts, ending their one-year tenure with the company. Now, during that time, they made appearances for MLW, the NWA, New Japan. They did have talks with AEW, not about coming on full-time, but actually just making one appearance, and it didn't come to fruition, and we don't really know how badly those talks went or if there would be interest in circling back round to it. There could be issues as well with people in AEW currently that Karrion Kross and Scarlett had issues with during their time in TNA/Impact Wrestling. Again, we don't know how that one would work out. But if the situation is legitimate, which there is skepticism around, maybe AEW could make the most of a surprising situation, or perhaps they're just not even available at all, and it's all a work and it's all to make Kross and Scarlett more popular in the future. So there you go, guys. There are 5 names that could be very new AEW signings in the future. What are your thoughts? Which ones are likely? Which ones are unlikely? Let me know your thoughts or reactions, as always, in the comment section below. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe. As you can see right there, we're just 7 subscribers away from 23,600 subscribers. Really appreciate everyone getting involved in the Wrestle News 365 family. Okay, guys, another countdown video on the way very soon. Appreciate everyone for tuning in, as always, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.